the show for real estate entrepreneurs.
Dude, it's like anything, right? Like I don't think about what I've done. I just think about the future all times. And like, it's like that show Entourage, right? Remember Entourage? It's like, you're only as good as your last movie, right? You're only as good as your last deal. So like, no one cares about what you sold a year ago. They want to care about what you're selling right now. And that's important to me. So I'm very focused on the future. And, and by default, if I focus on my future and I do a good job at that, then my future will become my past. And then my past is kind of taking care of me. So I don't need to think about it too much or focus on it, resume wise, this, that, the other. That way I can just walk into listing pitches and tell people exactly what to do. If you need to know about me, Google it.
I love that. Honestly, that's a great answer. And just like my perception of you, just watching you on the come up the last decade, you just seem like extraordinarily driven, like your motto of expansion always in all ways.
Yeah.
And just getting your real estate license during the biggest meltdown in real estate, starting your brokerage during a pandemic, like all of these things, like where does that come from? Where does that drive come from, and not caring about the past and all that?
I think at the beginning it was a total fear of failure, right? Like that I just, and also a mixture of a fear of being embarrassed, right? I think that is a real fear that most of us have these days. I almost feel like now, given where we are with social, given where we are post-COVID, where we're all so intertwined, right? Any little thing happens in the news, we see it on our phone in a hot second. Nothing is secret anymore. I think most of us now have a greater fear of being embarrassed than we do of failure. But for me back then, like there was no Instagram. You went on Facebook to put updates for like your mom, in 2007 and 2008. And it was a fear of failure. It was, okay, I'm in New York City. If I can't make it here, then I'm not going to make it anywhere. And that sucks. And what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And so but I knew that if I could make it in New York doing anything, then I would be able to find success doing anything, right? Anywhere. Because New York is really, really tough. It's an incredibly expensive city. The people are very difficult, and there's a hierarchy here. It is what it is. Like I can complain and bitch about it as much as I want, but listen, I'm not from New York. I didn't go to these schools. I wasn't born into these families. I'm not overly religious. Like I had to start from the ground up as a total outcast and outsider, but I figured out what worked for me. I knew very, very well what worked for me. I knew what didn't work for me, and I just went hard on what worked for me. Which pushed me to last summer in the middle of COVID, blowing my whole life up and starting my own real estate firm. So, I think that fear of failure guided me a lot in the beginning, but now I focus a lot more on my fear of wasted potential. I guess I have a lot of fears, but it's like that fear of not, of leaving something on the table. Right? Like you only have one life to live. Like I'm not the kind of person who's okay knowing in my blood that I didn't give it my best, because why not? Like why not try? Like why not try harder? Like why not do more? It's not rocket science, especially in our business. It's what drives me crazy with new agents all the time. Like, oh, I have no business. I'm like, did you go outside? Like, what do you mean? Did you go outside? Did you talk to people out on the street? There's a street outside. You live in a country where you can go outside and really not be afraid that you're going to be arrested for standing on the street, be shot, be killed, right? You've got food on the table. You've got 2 legs, 2 arms. Did you go outside and talk to strangers? Your best friend was a stranger before you met them. So that fear of wasted potential, which is why I think I drive myself crazy and do as much as we do now. But those are kind of the things that have driven me in the past and drive me now.
No, that's super interesting. So what would you say to newer agents to kind of get some of that? Like how do we get some of that?
You have to burn your boat, right? Burn your boat. If you have a blankie, if you have a comfort nugget that you are holding on to, if you still live at home with your parents, like anything that is making you a little bit too comfortable, light it on fire. Like, it's what we say here. We say, burn your boats. And so what that means is, like, you can swim, or you're never going to learn how to swim if you don't jump in the water. And look at all these other people swimming. You would be way better if you actually just tried. So, like, move out of your parents' house. Stop living in the same place that you've lived in for 10 years because the monthly payments are low. Push yourself. Push yourself up against a financial wall. There is nothing more motivating than debt. There's nothing more motivating than bills. Yeah. I'm like dead honest, right? Like, 100%. And you got to consistently motivate yourself. But maybe that's not for you. For me, I know that works. But maybe for you, it's your kids, right? Maybe for you, it's your husband. Maybe it's medical issues, whatever it might be. Maybe it's taking care of your parents and you want to pay their bills. Whatever that wall might be, you got to find your wall, right? Find your wall and put your back up against it, and then run as far away from it as you possibly can. And you can't do it comfortably. I don't know any runner who's been sprinting who's like, you know what? I'm also super comfortable right now in this dead sprint. No, otherwise you'd be walking, and anyone can walk. So I think that's really important. It's hard for people to do. Everyone says they want to be an entrepreneur. Everyone says they want to work for themselves. Everyone wants to get into real estate and sell billions of dollars worth of real estate, but no one wants to do the work, and no one wants to be afraid. You got to wake up a little bit afraid every day, because that's where the magic is.
That's beautiful advice. Like, one of our mentors, Mike Ferry, he kind of says it's similar, like that. If you want to go to the next level, go out and get that new car, get that new house, book that vacation with your family, and that fear of not being able to make the payment, that fear of making it happen, is what pushes you to actually make it happen.
Yep. Always. Like, it's people are so afraid of the future that they allow their fear of the future to predict the future. And then they don't do anything about it, which means that their future, they're not really doing a whole lot. And then their future isn't so bright. So you got to put yourself out there, right? And back yourself up against a wall. Like, it's a pretty great action item, Let's go and get something that's going to freak you out, because you know how to dig yourself out of that hole, right? You got to do it by making money. And maybe it means making money in ways that you don't want to. And that's fine. Like, dude, I spent years sweating my ass off in a suit, walking up and down 5- and 6-floor walk-ups in Harlem, Brooklyn, the Lower East Side, up and down, renting apartments for $1,000 to $2,000 a month. That's how I made my income. But it's also all I really knew. And it sucked. But I was never like, oh, this sucks, so I'm not going to do it. No, it was, I need to learn how to do this, because this is what I got to do in order to meet other people. And hopefully one of these people will buy something or sell something. And that's exactly what ended up happening. It just took a while, right? It took years. But you got to be willing to put in the work. And if you focus on the work will take care of you. Don't focus on the money. Don't focus on the touchdowns, right? People who focus on the touchdowns only last one season in the NFL, right? You hear about them, and they're the ones like who bounce out real quick. Focus on the work that you need to put in to march the ball down the field, and the touchdowns will take care of themselves.
I love it. And burning the boats, right? It kind of ties back into burning the boats. Those obligations are the new burning the boats that are going to push you to do what you got to do.
1,000%.
To watch this full Founders Club interview, click the link in the description below. And while you're here, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for future videos.